Hello, this is a Mercenary Spotlight on Renee, which includes her post-November 2021 rework. Renee is a 4-star defender. Her story is that she's a paladin of the Arclight Order and is seeking revenge on a mysterious evil swordsman that killed her parents. Renee's companion is Ciene and is Renee's best friend. That's actually just kind of her story actually. I'll briefly go over Renee's skills, gameplay style, and provide some of my opinions on her. I won't be going over the details of her skills, but just the general parts of it. I linked to my encyclopedia in the video description where you can easily read on her stats and skill values. Renee's first skill is debuff immunity. Before normal attack, Renee gains debuff immunity for a set amount of turns. At plus 12 and above, Renee gains incoming damage reduction on her debuff immunity. Renee's second skill is Blessing. When battle begins, Renee gets a stat enhancement buff that boosts all of her stats except HP. This boost scales with her defense. Do note that this Blessing buff will also raise her defense, but only after the base defense is calculated. After the first Blessing buff expires, a second Blessing buff will come in afterwards, which will boost all of her stats by base amount with no scaling. Renee's third skill is Armored Assault. Renee deals additional damage that scales with her attack and defense stats. At plus 11, if the additional damage portion kills the opponent, Renee will heal a portion of her max life. Renee's awakening skill is Regeneration Barrier. Before battle, Renee gains a barrier that provides incoming damage reduction and turn-by-turn healing. This barrier lasts for a good while. Renee is a defender who can carry a lot of bulk and hold her position in the lane through her ability to reach 100% defense on her own and debuff immunity when she attacks. Renee starts off the fight with a self-bestowed stat enhancement that boosts all of her stats. This is the main reason she can reach 100% defense on her own. Her attack, crit damage, and crit rate also see major improvements, making her pretty powerful within the first few rounds of a fight, especially since she deals additional damage based on her defense and attack, which can also crit. Even as the fight wears off, Renee can still retain some of her stats with the second Blessing buff that activates after her first one expires, albeit the second Blessing buff is significantly weaker. Renee's weakness is that she's generally easy to ignore given that she does not have taunt and can't deal enough damage to kill Sarah's buffed units. Renee has very little utility outside of making herself tankier, and she does not provide any kind of debuffs in a meta where debuffs tend to be very strong. Renee's preferred runes are shield runes. If you can provide her with at least 50% defense with runes or soul gears, then that will ensure that the Blessing buff could double that and bring her up to 100%. You can stack more defense if you like to ensure that even with her second Blessing she can still retain high defense, or you can spread it out with offensive stats. Same applies to her amulet. I'll go over what Renee counters. Renee's debuff immunity that is gained when she attacks allows her to reliably tank units like Xenon, Martina, Isla, Karen, Deka, Morgana, Luful, and Ian. Renee's debuff immunity also makes her immune to the gimmicks of Belisir and Exile. Her 100% defense can also allow her to tank mini units in Novice Arena as well, and it will be easier to go over what she doesn't tank instead. Her damage is also decent in the duration where her Blessing is active, making her good at killing squishy units like mini warriors in Novice Arena. I'll go over what counters Renee. Alchi is one of the best counters due to her being able to deal defense ignoring damage to defenders. A decently buffed Beatrice can also cause issues for Renee due to Beatrice being able to deal fixed damage to defenders. Eisen and Britain are another two units that can also deal defense ignoring damage, which could be a detriment to Renee. Hitting Renee before she can get started is also an option. Remember that she has to attack to get debuff immunity, so you can potentially stop her before she can get started if you're able to move first. Lastly, just waiting out her buffs could be viable. She gets significantly less tanky once her Blessing buffs wear out, and is fairly easy pickings from there. So some Renee synergies. Most units work well with Renee. You can buff her with a John to turn her into a Todd tank, but that requires 2 4-stars to run. Renee otherwise just works well in most comps. If you need a decent defender who doesn't need to be grouped with others and can work alone, Renee is definitely solid. Okay, so for my opinion, Renee was one of the first 4 units that was reworked with the companion update. During that patch she saw some pretty decent use, but quickly fell off when the other options began to appear. Renee's largest weakness was that she didn't really do anything. She was a decent tank, but was quickly overshadowed by units that had more utility, like Iris or Cry during that time. Her rework on November 2021 helps improve her drastically. Renee could definitely hold the title as one of Novice Arena's premier tanky defenders. She has it all: incoming damage reduction, 100% defense, and debuff immunity. She can be a pretty decent offensive threat as well. This is all enough to push Renee to relevancy in Novice Arena, and she becomes a pretty solid defender all in all. Renee primarily sees usage in Novice Arena. She may have some use in PvE content, but will quickly require supports to kill off more durable enemies found in PvE stages. So the question begs, should you invest in Renee? My answer is a slight yes if you play Novice Arena. I think she's a solid defender all in all and will have some pretty good viability in the long run. If Novice Arena begins to see rampant use of fixed or defense ignoring damage, then Renee will be significantly weaker. But on the other end, if Novice Arena becomes even more focused on debuffs, Iris will be even more useful. Iris isn't a difficult investment due to being a 4-star and all. The game even gives you one copy of her for free to new players during the start campaign. The larger question is what skill level to leave her at. +6 is the most efficient skill level for her as she has all of her major skills unlocked and usable. But if you really want to compete at a higher level Novice Arena, +15 is definitely a nice jump as it significantly extends the timer of her first blessing buff. Overall, Renee's adjustment was a very nice one, and it's good to have a wholesome hardy defender holding the lines. She's spent too long being forgotten. Thanks for watching my Renee Mercenary Spotlight. Stay tuned for more.